I'm going to jump right in. There's a lot that you're going to see on your screen, but please don't worry, this is being recorded and it will be posted onto YouTube and shared on social media. We will also make the slides available, so if you need to recap or want to go through at a slower pace, you will have that ability to do so. So our approach in creating new resources. We've been working on a plan for this since the spring, knowing that there was a good chance that this program would not run and schools would not necessarily reopen in their traditional formats. So we've been thinking a lot about how we wanted to move forward with this. So our number one goal has been to support you as the teachers and as the practitioners of this program. And please keep that in mind throughout all of this, is that you are the ones who make this program happen, and we are here to help do what we can to support you in that. We wanted to ensure that the program was exciting for students and that the tools we create and share keep that excitement going for students, even if they're not meeting in person. We also wanted to create special experiences for students, things that were unique to the Kid Governor program and that students might not get otherwise, while also making sure that what we provide to you allows you to be flexible and have multiple options as to how you want to teach the program, depending on if your district is in-person, hybrid, all virtual, if that's where things go. We wanted to make sure that the resources could adapt to that. We've had several meetings with educators, some of you on the phone with us this evening, or in the Zoom meeting, I should say. And one thing that we kept hearing is that video content is especially compelling for students, and that underscored really what we believe and what we use in building the program. That's why students make campaign videos and using the technology that's out there and how kids interact. So thinking through what video content we could provide, and also keeping in mind it would be useful to students who might struggle with reading. So how video content can be used for that. Again, adaptability, especially if you need to transition between virtual or in-person teaching. And along those lines, keeping in mind tools that could be used for synchronous learning and or asynchronous learning. So, and we've been following, as I said, what the state's been putting out, what we've been hearing nationally, going to webinars, to professional development, and reading so many district reopening plans. So we're really keeping in mind what you're up against and what you're working with as schools reopen. So to jump right in, first of all, those of you who've participated in the program before are familiar with our toolkits. And those are our collection of lesson plans that will guide you through the entire program. They include a lesson plan, they include worksheets, they include answer keys, they include connections to curriculum. It's all in one document. Those are, as you may be familiar, designed for in-person instruction. So we published these in the spring because we really wanted to make sure you had those resources available, but also knowing that we might need to create something new come this fall. So those are available on our website. The two different versions being if your school or your class is going to nominate a student from your school and vote in the election, or just vote in the election. Those are available on our website, ct.kidgovernor.org. And the program will still follow the lesson sequence that's in there, lessons 1 through 15, or 1 through 7 if you were just voting. But what we are doing is we've broken down the PDFs into smaller PDFs. So as you'll see in a little bit when Jacob gives you a tour of the Google Drive, by lesson you can get one PDF with the lesson plan, one PDF with if there's any content or educational materials, one PDF that has the worksheets. So if you need to grab and go and print quickly, or if you need to email students one portion, you don't have to figure out how to divide up the toolkit. We've done that for you. So it's all in one place. And then after talking to lots of teachers over the last few weeks and doing research and going to webinars, we have found that many, though we understand not all, school districts are making use of Google Classrooms. And if not Google Classrooms, we know that many teachers use Google or Google Drive in their own personal lives. So what we are doing is creating Google-based resources for you to teach these lessons. So as you'll see in a couple minutes with Jacob, we have a Google form for every single lesson. So they will walk your students through the content, and then there are questions, and then they can submit it, and those will go right to you, and we'll go over how that works. It's not anything that would get submitted to us, but there is a Google form option. You can see a screenshot right here of the first lesson on introducing Connecticut's 3 branches of state government, where we have the information right in there that you would normally find in the toolkits. So students, if you would like to go with that option, can learn it on their own. We've also created a Google Slides version of every worksheet that is in the toolkit. And so by that, I mean we've taken screenshots of the worksheets themselves, made them into a Google slide presentation, and added in colored text boxes so that students can answer their questions right in Google Slides. So if you are making use of Google Classroom, you can then assign that slide presentation as an assignment to your students. They can complete it and return it to you. That way you don't have to worry about if you have paper assignments or what have you. That's another option in addition to the Google Forms. If you are not a school that's using Google Classroom, you can download those slides and still share them out as PowerPoint files to your students. You'll hear in a little bit from Samantha, who's been working on Bitmoji classrooms for 3 of our lessons. So if you are not familiar, it is more of a gamified approach to teaching where you have Bitmojis and characters who are helping students explore different presentations. And we have 3 of those that will be coming in the next few weeks for students to do some asynchronous learning of specific lessons. By the same token, if you would prefer to lead a virtual class, or if you're teaching in person with some students, for some of the lessons that are more content focused, we will have Google Slides presentations with the information so that you can relay it to your students yourself and click through on a shared screen in a Google Meet, if you're using Zoom, or even if you have it pulled up on a smart board or something in your classroom. We're also creating some resources in Google Sheets, very basic resources, nothing with formulas and all of that, but opportunities for you to do something a little different, connecting in the lessons and getting students to be more engaged with those lessons. So in the end, there are at least 2 options for modifying most of the lessons that are in the toolkit, depending on how you would like to present them to your students. We are also working to create, as I mentioned, video resources or video-based resources. So in the coming weeks, we will be sharing a brief video introduction from our staff for every single lesson in the toolkits. And that will be a student-facing video that will introduce your students to what they will be learning in that lesson. And so that's an additional resource for you to use with your students if you would like to give them another face to explain what they're going to be learning in an activity. We are also working to get videos from elected officials explaining their branch of state government. So these videos in particular will be for lesson 1 on the 3 branches of state government, and will be as either another option instead of the reading portion of that lesson, or in addition to. And I am happy to say this isn't her particular video for this. This is her video for something else, but Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz, who you see on the screen, will be recording a video about the executive branch. And we're working with some other folks to create a video about the legislative branch and a video about the judicial branch. And I should say that the videos that we're putting out are designed to be digestible. So we're keeping them in the 2 or 3 minute range. These aren't going to be 10 or 15 minute long videos for your students to get through. It's something bite-sized that will really help teach them the content, but also keep their attention. We are also making use of Flipgrid this year after hearing from a few teachers who found some good success with it. If you're not familiar, Flipgrid is a platform that lets students reply to questions or share their responses using video. And it is a platform that has been approved, and they've signed the Connecticut Education Technology Privacy Agreement, so they are okay to use if you don't already use it in your district. And we will have a reflection question, or they call it a topic, for every lesson in the toolkit. So as you go through, if you are having your students learn on their own, or if you are doing synchronous teaching, you can send them a link to the Flipgrid where they can answer a reflection question or a prompt after each lesson or after a few lessons, depending on how you want to do it. And our team will be putting together what's called a grid of these topics for the program, and you will be able to copy them and share them with your students so that you get their responses rather than them coming to us. I'm not going to go through a full explanation of how Flipgrid works. We're happy to talk with you about that if you have questions, but I did just want to show you quickly a Flipgrid that the State Department of Education put together for their Social Studies Challenge. And some of you may recognize this young lady, and her teacher is on the webinar tonight. This is Elena Tipton, our first Kid Governor. And this summer, Elena put together a series of videos, actually say in the spring, for students about how they could show kindness while being socially distant. So as part of the state's Social Studies Challenge, they used one of her videos and they put in a prompt to students on Flipgrid asking them other ways that they can show kindness towards others. And as you can see, a student would be sent to a page like this, and it would be about the Kid Governor program and about what they're learning. And then they click the video button and they're able to record their response to that prompt. So it gives it, again, we're going with video options for students, and it's something that changes it up a little bit from writing or typing and writing out their reflections. And those would be ways for you to collect their feedback and really see what they're retaining. So that's Flipgrid. And our last thing, and I don't have full details to share yet, but we are working to see if there is a way for us to provide webinars by our staff for your students, where we would be able to take on teaching a lesson or two throughout the 15 lesson sequence to make it a little bit easier on your end and give students a 15 or 20-minute video they could watch, which would convey what you would normally teach. So we are working through finding platforms that would work for that, making sure that we stay within student privacy and make sure students can access it. So that's something we'll have a little bit more information on coming in September. So one thing which is going to be very important this fall is really generating student excitement. And I know I speak for Jacob and Sam. We've been able to visit classrooms at all phases of their participation in Kid Governor. And one of the most rewarding parts is that we can see the excitement that these kids have for the program, about voting, about coming up with campaign issues, about having their voices heard. So student excitement is going to be really critical. So we're coming up with ways that we can help you do that. And if you have ideas, by all means, please reach out and let us know. We will be providing virtual backgrounds for you. Excuse me. If you are teaching on a platform like Zoom or have the capability to put up a virtual background, we will have ones like this that show the Kid Governor logo that you can use. And we're also working on getting some virtual backgrounds of the Kid Governor's office here at the old State House. So those are things that you can keep an eye out for. One recommendation, and you can see along the side of our screen, are some of the voting posters that we've seen in schools around Connecticut that they will sometimes hang during the election season. And we really felt it's an opportunity either for you or for your students to create voting and campaign posters. And if you're doing synchronous learning, to hang them in your background or have them on your screen, balloons, things like that, to really build the spirit of this election season and the Kid Governor program itself. Our staff does want to offer, if you are doing virtual learning or if there is another way for us to connect with your class, we would be happy to visit your classroom virtually over the course of this fall. So if it would be at all useful for us to pop in and say hello or answer any questions, please consider reaching out to us. We'd be honored to pay a visit to classrooms around Connecticut. And another idea, just as you're thinking through running the program, to consider holding a virtual grade-wide or school-wide rally when the time comes, where you could have all your students on Zoom or on Google Meet to either have your school's nominees give their speeches before students vote on who will be your school's official nominee to the statewide election, or if you want to show all the videos, you'll be able to watch them obviously online. There are opportunities and ways that you can share them and have all students watch them together, which might give a sense of excitement and togetherness as students are watching the videos, which is really key to getting the students pumped about watching and eventually voting. So these are just a couple quick ideas that we've come up with, and we're working on some more. So if you have ideas, please send us an email. We really want to help you convey the spirit of the election this fall. So how will all of this be shared? We've been trying to think of ways to most effectively and in a most streamlined way provide all of these materials to you. So we are creating a Google shared drive. And what that means is that we've created a separate Google Drive just for this year's Connecticut's Kid Governor program. And we are going to be adding each registered teacher to that drive. And Jacob is going to give an explanation of how exactly that shared drive works and how you can make use of the materials in it. We will be posting a document that is sort of an addendum to the toolkits, and it'll explain what resources are available lesson by lesson. And we also have organized everything into folders by lesson. So as you go through and say you're teaching lesson 2 today, you can go into the lesson 2 folder and you can find PDF copies of resources, any PowerPoints we might have, it'll all be in one spot. And what that'll enable you to do is to copy those resources to your own drive. And if you are a Google Classroom district, you can then put them out as assignments to your students. We will not have any access to the student information. The reason we chose to use a Google Shared Drive is that when you go to access the document, it forces you to make a copy of it. And that is what will allow you to move it into your classroom. So every teacher can make a copy across the state and share it directly with their students so that you can collect all of their responses as assignments or to grade or what have you. And Jacob will show you these in a moment, but for the Google Forms we've created, if you're not familiar with Google Forms as a platform, you can actually convert forms into quizzes. So if you were looking to convert what's in there in order to be able to grade your students, look into the quizzes function and how you can change the settings so that you can actually grade your students based on what they're turning into you. And the way we've set up the forms is that they will collect student email addresses, and then students will receive copies of their own work. So you will, as well as the students.